All right, all right. Welcome everyone to another edition of Inspiring Stories of Transformation. I'm Jomo, and if you've never been on the show before, what we like to do here is bring on inspiring guests, inspiring entrepreneurs who are moving forward towards their dreams and have already and are in the process of doing big things in the world. And I like to bring them on so that they can share their story, because far too often I've seen entrepreneurs' success stories, and they kind of make it seem like it's this overnight thing, like this thing that just magically happened overnight, and there wasn't really kind of like a human element to their success. So I like to bring these guests on to share their story and to inspire all of you listening in to keep moving forward towards your dreams. Because I know that if you're watching, you're likely an entrepreneur and you likely have things that you're moving towards in your life. And sometimes we just need a little, a reminder or a push in the right direction, some inspiration, knowing that some people have gone through, the same kinds of things that you're going through right now. So I hope that you enjoy today's edition. I have a very dear friend of mine on, and I'm excited to bring him to you if you've never met him before. His name is Mr. Tony Floreal. Say hello, Mr. Tony.
Hey, hey Jomo, how's it going?
It's going, man. It's really going well, really well. So, if you want to start off by maybe sharing a little bit about yourself, um, I will say before Tony gets rolling that he is a real inspiration of mine. We've connected basically over the last few years, and over the last month, we've been really closely connecting on a weekly basis, and really been getting a lot of inspiration from the conversations I've been having with Tony. And he basically helps me tap into flow. I've been feeling like I've been able to tap into flow in so many situations where I normally would feel, anxiety, or I would feel, kind of stress. But then all of a sudden, I just like tap into flow, and I'm noticing it a lot more. So it's really, really beneficial to listen into what Tony has to say, because I think he's really going to help you see the world in a more empowering way and a more open way, right? See the world through the eyes of expansion and possibilities. So, having said that, Tony, the floor is yours. You can share a story that you have about, where you come from. Tell people, what you've gone through in your life. Maybe your first experiences with flow, and how that really has molded and shaped you moving forward, and to becoming the person you are today.
Yeah, it's definitely an honor to be on your show, Jomo. And yeah, where it all began. Well, I was born in Santa Monica, California, 1977, and I started out growing up with some challenges, some physical challenges in terms of being hearing impaired. Also grew up without a father, so father took off at an early age. I think I was not even 2 years old when he abandoned the family. Fortunately, my mother had her family up in San Francisco who took us in, and growing up in San Francisco, I was exposed to so much culture. I was exposed to different ethnicities, different religions, different types of food. I was exposed to sports, music, art, and I was really fortunate that my mom kind of played both roles, and she was not only a sweet mama, but she was also a tough papa as well. And she played the father role as well, and I was fortunate to have great family members and examples in my grandparents on the Filipino side of me. Unfortunately, I didn't grow up with the Greek side, and didn't get to know them until I was around, I would say, 32 years old when I reached out to that side of the family, and uh, kind of went against my mom's wishes because I had to find out myself, and it worked out, and it's been pretty cool. So yeah, I grew up hearing impaired. I had a lot of challenges, health challenges, allergies. Um, I was a very sensitive kid, and I didn't really realize it at the time, but essentially I did notice a lot of things in my environment. I was pretty perceptive, super introverted, and very sensitive in the sense that I was sensitive to like teasing and bullying, and so I had some traumas earlier in my life. Um, Grew up, went through Catholic school from kindergarten through 8th grade. Had a great education, great friends came out of that, including my best friend that I've known since kindergarten. Uh, we're we've been buddies for a long time. But I also grew up in a religious environment, although I wasn't baptized. I was a bit of an outsider in the school, just in the sense that I went through Catholic upbringing without actually being officially part of the Catholic religion. So it gave me a sense of spirituality and a sense of a connection to something greater than ourselves. But there also came the baggage of what comes with some religions. My only experience was going through Catholic schools, or Catholic school, and then because my family was so multi-cultural, meaning that we had people that were part Swedish, part Greek, part Armenian, um, part Filipino. Like there was so many different cultures that I was exposed to, and even pieces of artifacts from each culture. And I remember growing up seeing the Buddha statue around the house, with the big belly, and everybody always say go rub the belly for good luck. So I got a lot of questions about religion and spirituality, and then of course all the experiences I was having as a kid that seemed kind of out of the ordinary. I mean, they didn't seem possible in a scientific sense, and I was having these like sort of outrageous, at the time I would say spiritual experiences, but also was very intrigued by science. And when I was little, I wanted to be a scientist, a marine biologist, um, but also was captivated by the idea of even being a monk, a martial artist, you know. So growing up, I actually grew up, was pretty overweight. Um, no knew any better about nutrition, and a lot of my allergies probably came from that. Being around smokers as well, my immune system was pretty compromised, and at the age of when I was in preschool, I had these massive earaches, and it was so painful that I actually passed out and woke up to my mom's angelic face, and told her how much pain my ears were hurting, and so she took me to the hospital. And from that point on, I became a kind of a lab experiment, in the sense that I went through multiple surgeries to put tubes in my ears to drain the fluid. I had gone through heavy dosages of antibiotics, and so I was presume my gut got compromised, my immune system got compromised, and I always felt kind of burdened by my health growing up. my only liberation was the fact that I loved to play, and whenever I was able to get outside, um, it was like freedom, and it was amazing, some of the experiences I had, especially as I got introduced to my older cousins who were like, they were like gods to me because they were amazing athletes, and I looked up to them to, eventually my goal was to become a pro athlete. And so through their tutelage, I was pretty good athlete. I was decent. I was well-rounded. I started to have these spiritual experiences playing sports, in which things would go into slow motion. I felt like I was in the zone. I would do feats that I didn't even think were possible. Other people around me were blown away by what happened, but it wasn't like it was a common thing. It was almost like just a random coincidental event that would occur. So um, eventually I got introduced to the ocean and learning to ride waves. And I started out as a boogie boarder. And during those times being out in the ocean where the currents were pretty insane, the water was ridiculously cold, and there would be moments where I would pull in on a wave and the top of the wave would just barrel over me, and I would find myself in the tube. And in that period of time, everything went into slow motion, and it just freaked me out. I was like, what is that? And so I would say that was my first conscious experience of the flow state. When I look back at my childhood, I definitely remembered being in flow in the early years when I think about the sun shining on my face and feeling the breeze of the wind and hearing the birds uh, chirp and tweet, and but the first like full blown flow state happened when I dropped into a tube, Ocean Beach, San Francisco. And I would say I was probably about uh, like 12 years old, maybe 11, and from then on there, I was captivated on how could I live in that state permanently, because it felt like I was superhuman. Um, I felt like Superman, literally, and these states started to happen in different experiences, whether we had the earthquake of San Francisco in 1989. So emergency situations have happened. It's happened to me while I was meditating. It's happened to me while I was speaking, doing public speaking. It's happened, being in a romantic relationship. And they're all different in their own ways. Each flow state has their own signature. It's very unique, but they also have their commonalities. There's similarities between like meditation and being in a action sports flow state, but they're also very different as well. And the research, which is really exciting to me, is verifying this and validating this, and bringing more substantial evidence, to these kind of consciousness experiences, so that they're not perceived as woo-woo anymore, which, I have no problems with woo-woo. I would say I'm half woo-woo and half spiritual, and half, I'm losing my math here, but half scientific as well.
Wow. Very cool, man. Very cool. I appreciate you sharing that, sharing your story with us. I think I want to go back to what you were saying about when you're in that wave and all the different flow experiences that you've had? You said they all were very similar, but also different at the same time. What would you say you've noticed were like the similarities between all of the experiences? And I know that you're actually about to teach a course on getting into flow. So if you want to share basically some of the things you've learned through those experiences about, um, how the people who are tuning in right now could tap into flow.
Yeah, so to answer your first question about the similarities, um, the best definition I've heard about flow is when you feel your best and you perform your best, and it's the ultimate state of performance. So essentially, the similarities were that it was a heightened state of awareness. You become very aware of more things around you and your surrounding. It's almost, if you were to talk in scientific terms, in terms of like the feedback loop, you're getting more input, more data into through your senses, and
Hmm.
it's almost like overwhelming, and it becomes in a sense like a very profound and beautiful state that is happening. And it's for example, like time in these states either like slow down or speed up. And we've all had the experience where you're hanging out with somebody having a great conversation, and like 5 hours goes by and it felt like 10 minutes, you know.
Hmm.
Or you'd had an experience where you're like maybe in a car accident, and it seemed like it was happening. It was like a real split second of occurrence that was occurring, but it felt very long because it was in slow motion.
Mm.
So that's what it experiences. The other similarities would be that you just feel like amazing. You can't believe that you could feel this good, and through neurochemistry and neuroanatomy, all the neurosciences are pretty much uh, are starting to document what is going on, like in the brain, what hormones and neurotransmitters are being released. And from what I hear from the group that I'm part of as a student, it's the Flow Genome Project, and they're a scientific group that's basically researching on all the different physical and psychological responses that are occurring when people are in flow states, including like meditation and like peak experiences, because
Hmm.
they're starting to see that there's differences between the two, but they're also, I mean, between the three, but they're all pretty similar. This also starting to get into the fringe of studying, psychedelics. Research is starting to come back, and the role of like exercise and sleep, and like all the basics, the fundamental things that we need to do in order to feel our best and perform our best. So um, yeah, I mean, there's so many qualities that are pretty neat about flow. Um, the differences for each one is flow, like peak performance, when you're actually performing something, it's very active. It's very engaging in a sense that you're performing an activity. You're very focused. You're focused down on the task at hand. It helps that if you enjoy what you're doing, so if you're passionate about what you're doing, that really drives the focus into the now, into the moment. And it's it involves using like your brain and body at the same time, whereas meditation is a very passive state, although you're active in the sense that you're focusing on your thoughts, and you're observing them, and detaching from these thoughts as no longer as yours, but these thoughts that are just running on its own without your control. And then there are different techniques of these types of meditation where you could practice just observing the thoughts in a non-attachment manner, or you can actually practice on like playing with those thoughts and like control in the direction of those thoughts and having the mind control you, and then you control the mind, and it goes back and forth, and it becomes this tug of war game that's pretty fun. So,
Yeah.
and then of course, then there's the other kind of like peak experiences that you have with other people in social situations, whether in a one-on-one relationship with your partner, or an actual like group situation where you go to like a rock concert or a electronic music dance fest, or even a sporting event with like thousands of people. It's pretty cool, like to be in flow in those sort of environments as well.
Hmm. Yeah. I think those are definitely the experiences, the types of times that I've felt in flow, for sure. Like in groups of people and also one-on-one. It's like I think it has to do with the fact that you are, uh, especially if you meditate like as like a practice, or you do similar things on your own, then when you kind of immerse yourself into experiences with other people, you make it less about you and more about the experience and more about what's happening in the moment. You're able to kind of detach from your thoughts and your stories, and at least to the point where you're not you don't feel like they are you. That whole thing with like meditation is like distancing yourself from your thoughts, realizing that you're not your thoughts. And so realizing that the interactions and the experiences that we're having, they're not actually us, but at the same time, they're happening, and we're becoming very present to what's happening, because we're realizing the transience of it all, right? So it's like you're appreciating what's happening in the moment because of the fact that you realize that what's happening is not going to stick. It's never going to be there forever. It's going to go away, very soon, most likely. So it's like it's that appreciation. I think that's really what triggers a lot of my flow states, is like appreciating where I am, appreciating everything that got me here, and simultaneously also like not being attached to one particular result or one particular thing happening, but kind of just being more improvisational with the whole experience, and like playing, right? Playing with what's happening rather than like trying to grab onto it. I think that's the difference between like living kind of from a space of like ease and relaxation, rather than like a space of stressing and like forcing and trying to get things to happen and making things happen. And there's a time and place for everything, and I know that
Yeah, you said it, man. For sure, it's a time and place for everything.
Yeah, we've had pretty lengthy discussions about this too. How everything that you could learn about manifestation or spirituality or personal development or achieving your goals or whatever it is that you're actually learning, it's a tool, but it's not always going to work. It's basically like you're playing around with all the tools you have access to, and not being attached to one specific tool, and not thinking that that one tool is going to give you results every single time.
Yeah, that's what they say about the hammer, right? You can't use a hammer for every nail that you see. I mean, you think that all your problems are nails, so you have the one tool as a hammer, and that's the only tool you use, you know.
Hmm.
So we have access to so many tools.
Exactly, yeah. So you actually are teaching and sharing a lot about the tools that help you get into flow. And so I wanted to kind of give people a caveat, you know, that kind of ties into what I was just saying, but I wanted to give people like a caveat ahead of time that um, I think it was like Spider-Man where they said, you know, uh, you have the power and you can either use it for good or evil. You know, it's you have that choice. And so
Exactly.
and so I think that it's really important to preface what we're about to share or what you're about to share with saying that these are tools, and just like everything, they have their good side and they have their dark side. So,
Yeah.
do you want to kind of share a little bit about maybe a story where you went to the dark side because of using the tools, or you know, basically wanting flow so badly and letting it kind of take you out of control?
Yeah, so my nature has always been explorer, always been looking outside the box, having an open mind, being aware of life in general. The biggest thing for me is we're all just pretty much dust, you know, and we're floating on this speck of this rock that's spinning around in some billions of galaxies, and so that really puts things in life in perspective, you know, especially when you start losing close people left and right to death. And as far as we know for sure, at this point, who knows about the future, but we're all going to die, you know. That's just a straight up fact. And um, so to answer your question, I pretty much was streaky clean for most of my life, especially my early years. I relied on just the basics of food and exercise, air, sunlight, sleep. You know, all the fundamentals that keep us alive. And growing up, I had friends in all areas. You go to high school, and I was friends with everybody. I didn't really belong to one clique per se. You know, I hung out with the athletes. I hung out with the nerds. I hung out with the heavy metal uh, headbangers. You know, I hung out with uh, girls. Like so. But you see it. You see, you go to parties and people start to, start drinking alcohol, and then there's like, people smoking cigarettes, and then eventually you start to see like, the so-called like um, heavy stuff like marijuana and pot. And so for me, I never really dove into it. Um, I did start drinking in high school at a party, and it just blew me away how amazing I felt, because I was pretty shy, like I mentioned earlier, as an introvert. So talking to girls was just like overwhelming, you know. It's just like didn't know what to say, and it's so self-conscious. And as soon as we would have these parties, I start drinking, I'd become like, you know, an animal. And people would just be cracking up, the girls would be laughing, and it was like this other side of me comes out, like I came out of my shell. So it would have been so easy for me to be an alcoholic because of being in that Superman state. I mean, to me, that was like another flow moment, because what happens is, I guess the research says that that part of your brain that's responsible for um, being critical, sort of what they call your inner Woody Allen. It's just this little neurotic part part of yourself that's always self-judging and you know, just self-conscious. So that part of your brain shuts off, and you start to feel like what you really are, like you feel like yourself. And so it's an easy way to escape reality, and you know, because no one teaches us the tools that, you know, we're going to be teaching, and that is being taught now, is that the science catching up, and it's like these are the things that enable people to access their highest part of themselves, their superhuman parts of themselves. And it's not easy, because flow, the paradox of it is it takes a lot of engagement, it takes a lot of grit and grind and struggle to get into these sort of epiphany aha moments we have. Especially we all experienced it. Kids go through it a lot because they are constantly learning. But what's awesome is it's not too late um, to become all you can be. We're all capable of more. It doesn't matter if you're, like, you know, 4 years old and you're in your 80s right now. It's like the science is showing that the brain literally rewires itself, and it takes about like 66 days to develop a new habit and to unwire the old habits, and it takes about 18 months to, like, literally transform yourself that you're almost unrecognizable to even your peers. So it's really exciting now. We're in exciting times. And back to your question. So I essentially I ended up living in Vancouver, Canada. Moved up there when I got married. It didn't work out. During that time, I ended up in Greece. I met my father for the first time in over 30 years. And as I was leaving Greece the second time I was there, I almost got stopped by the military, because apparently I'm a Greek citizen. My dad had submitted my birth certificate, and the thing about Greece is if you stay there for more than I think it was like 60 days, you're under Greek law, even if you're American, which I am. And they took me aside and they literally said that we're going to have to detain you because you haven't served your military time. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm American. They're like, yeah, but it shows in our system that you've been here for more than 60 days, so you're under Greek law. We're going to keep you behind. You have to serve in the military. And this is like another flow moment where essentially I had to just submit myself, and I sat in the office as they were talking to each other in Greek, and eventually they pulled me into the superior's office, and he says, you know that this is really serious. And I said, I understand, sir. He's like, I talked to my superiors, and we decided that we're going to let you go, but the next time you come to Greece, you're going to have to serve. And so that just tripped me out, you know. But fast forward, so I ended up on the airplane, and it was this sense of freedom that I felt, and had to choose whether living in Canada again or going back to the States. And deep down, I felt like my time in Canada wasn't up yet. So I went back to Canada, and I got my business off the ground, and essentially I had a lot of friends that were diving into psychedelics, and I was hearing things about this Amazon shamans that would do ceremonies down in the jungle. I've always been fascinated by the Native American cultures as well, with their ceremonies, but the opportunity had never presented itself. And so one of the things I look for in my life, what has to do with flow, is that I don't really go chasing after things. If something is time to enter my life, it usually presents itself, and so I start becoming aware. The scientific term is called pattern recognition. So you start to be aware of these synchronicities, so-called coincidences. You notice numbers more. You notice more signs leading you in a certain direction. If you had ever traveled in a foreign country, you wouldn't recognize any of the signage because it's in another language. But if you really pay attention to flow, certain doors open up in front of you, and you realize that's the door I need to walk through to get to the next step. So anyways, this Amazon shaman, this special plant medicine, as they call it, it was called ayahuasca. And I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, but essentially you take this brew that consists of some leaves and some roots. It's made into like some kind of like really foul tasting concoction. It's like a medicine. So I ended up doing a ceremony with this this group that was Catholic based, and I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but the short of the story is that it was crazy. It was insane. I had witnessed hell here on Earth, and I was fine because of, I guess, years of training as a meditator, and having experiences being in emergency situations. Skydiving, you really have to be situationally aware, and
especially when
that's a
you're
whole
pulling
other.
the especially when you're pulling the chute,
Yeah,
right?
pulling the chute and you have to land your own. So fortunately I had these experiences, so I was able to maintain my composure. But what I saw was just the absolutely, it's creepiest, circusy, ridiculous craziness hell that I've ever witnessed. And I just couldn't believe. I was like, I don't really get this. What is this for? Like, you know, maybe afterwards I saw like I felt like there was a sense of glow as the medicine wore away, and I got back into the world. Everything looked kind of like shiny and glowy, golden, um, and being the type of person that I am, I'm always like pushing the edge, and perhaps I've taken too big of a dose. But I didn't learn a lesson yet, because it leads me to the next story where I was like, I'm going to try mushrooms now. And so the opportunity presented itself, and I was with a friend of mine who agreed to supervise me, and I ended up taking this super heroic dose, and it basically brought me into a state of schizophrenia, and I tried to maintain my composure, and I was like talking to my friend, and he understood what I was saying, but he didn't understand, and so we were speaking the same language, but he didn't understand what I was saying, and it was getting frustrating. And I turned my cell phone on, and I was like trying to see if I could connect with my girlfriend at the time, see if I could contact her, you know, to make sure that I'm not going crazy, you know. And I tried like turning my phone on, and everything was holographic, and it was like, it was just frustrating. So I eventually approached my friend, and I said to him, dude, I looked him straight in the eye, and I said, I'm good, I'm ready to go. And so I put on my jacket, and I start walking out his front door, and he jumps in front of the door and he puts his hands up and he's like, bro, he's like, you asked me to watch you. He's like, you got a couple more hours to go. He's like, I can't let you go. And I was like, okay, man. And I turned around and he lives on the 3rd floor of an apartment building. And I kid you not, this is what's really spooky about like our existence here on the planet, but the notion about free will or not. But essentially, I watched this body sprint to the window and dive through the window of a 3rd floor apartment building. And the next thing I know, fortuitously, my legs had caught the ledge, and so my torso was outside the building, but my legs were still inside the building. And all in one motion, I pushed off the side of the building, my legs kicked out, and I free fell like a flying squirrel onto my belly and hit the ground. And I literally thought like I just died, because the wind was knocked out of me. I ended up falling, which was another like fortuitous thing. Like, what are the chances? But in that alleyway in the back of the apartment building, they had built this concrete planter box, and it was the middle of winter of Vancouver, and so it was just this little bush with twigs sticking up, and I fell right on top of it, and I thought I had impaled myself, and I fell into dirt, which probably like softened the fall, you know. And as I came to my senses, I looked down to make sure that I wasn't impaled, and then I realized I wasn't. And I slowly got up, and I was just wondering if I had like broken bones, or did I like split something open? I'm like bleeding to death, and as far as I could tell, like only my hands were bleeding. And I got up and I looked up to the heavens and I like howled like a beast. And I was literally like so grateful that like I was alive. And secondly, I was like out of that building, that I could go, and the next step was to go find someone that I knew, which was either my mom, my sister, my niece at the time. They don't live in Canada, so I wasn't gonna be able to like run towards them. So I was gonna run towards my girlfriend, and end up running down the street. But this story goes on forever. But the gist of the story is that the emergency personnel showed up. My friend found me outside, called up 911. I ended up in the hospital. Um, I was surrounded by nurses and doctors that were amazing. I just remember everybody was looking at me in awe, and they just could not believe that I had survived that fall, because according to the doctor who was teasing me whether or not I was a cat, she said that about 90% of people that fall out of that height are either maimed or dead. And she's like, you're going to walk out of this hospital in a couple hours with some scratches and some bruises. And so the moral of the story is, I'm not anti-psychedelics or plant medicines, whatever term you use, but it is a tool, and I believe all tools are neutral. You can use it for good, you can use it for bad, and you know, a lot of it in our lives, we all have some kind of addiction, you know. And in my search for enlightenment, I realized that that wasn't the path for me. You know, maybe it was dosage dependent, and maybe with the research that's going on and the legalization of marijuana and perhaps psychedelics, it could be used as a tool for people that are so struggling with life, may have depression, they may have PTSD, they may have whatever trauma that they're going through, it's promising that the research is showing that perhaps these things could be medicine to help people find their sense of self. So there's many roads that lead to Rome, and that could be one of them. I'm not discounting it, but at the same time, I did learn my lesson. I realized I had another chance in life. I've had a few near-death experiences in my life, just being the guy that pushes the boundaries of what's possible in my own mind. And um, so yeah, I'm pretty grateful about life, and I want to be able to share to people how they could transform and know like how capable they really are, because they'll be surprised of what they really can do.
Wow, dude, that story. It shocks me every time I hear it. Like it's really amazing that you were able to receive that reason, from that. Like you gained clarity, and you gained direction in your life through that experience, through the contrast that you had, with psychedelics, and you realize that it wasn't for you, and you realize that you could receive the similar feeling or the flow state that you were attempting to receive through those substances, through other means, through other more natural means and more sustainable means, right? Really, ones that didn't threaten
Yeah,
your life.
it's interesting because meditation, yoga is really popular here around the Western world now, and it's also possible to meditate, that become an addiction as well. I, I
Hmm.
pushed I pushed the boundaries of that. Like uh, almost like moved to India to live in the Himalayas and be a monk, live in some cave, and um, all these experiences I pushed to the limit, and I realized that we're not getting the complete picture. Make sure when you get into something that you really research both sides of the coin and take that into consideration. And some of these groups mean well, and they maybe they just don't really know the dark sides of any tool, because all tools have a dark side as well. And so the maturity is the ability to know yourself well enough and be able to use tools for leverage for the benefit of good, and understand what the downsides of each thing that could happen while using tools. So whether psychedelics or illegal means to legal means, I've even pushed the boundaries of using electricity on the body to get into flow states, peak performance, and going too far that way as well can be detrimental. So our bodies are incredible pieces of meat. I mean, it's amazing how this thing can heal itself, and it produces its own pharmacy from the brain, and I think different parts of the body in terms of like all the glands that release varying hormones. So all these things are what they call like endogenous, or like an inner uh, drug that's released to maintain um, the sense of wholeness or homeostasis. So it's incredible what kind of experiences we can derive just from like moving our bodies, from dancing to hugging each other to having a conversation and really engage and listen, to food can be a drug, music can be a drug, exercise over-exercising, oversleeping. So it's just a matter of being wise and mature to know the proper dosage that one needs to optimize their psychology and physiology.
So every person's different. Everyone's in a different situation. So whatever tool, it's there's no recipe that works for everyone. It's just
Yeah, exactly.
it's situational.
No magic pill or bullet.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
if there is,
choosing
there's
from your
probably a
options,
lot of,
right?
yeah, exactly. And if there is like a magic pill or bullet, it comes with consequences, you know. So, but we are the ultimate tool. I mean, we inhabit the ultimate tool, and we have the ability, unlike other animals on the planet, to uh, adapt as fast as we can, because we have access to tools. You know, uh, like fire revolutionized humanity, like when it was discovered. But playing with fire, fire itself is not bad, but you know, playing with fire, you have to be careful, right? Because it can bite you, and that goes with any tool.
Hmm. Very cool. So you're actually in the process of launching your new course. It's called the Energy Triggers of Superstates, the 10 simple strategies for bending time, learning fast, and feeling superhuman. And so I was thinking maybe you could give the listeners a taste, maybe share one of those 10 strategies that you're going to be teaching in your course, if you care to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the course is called Flow Elementals, the energy triggers as super states. And like Jomo alluded, it was 10 simple strategies for bending time, learning fast, and feeling superhuman. So one of these strategies that I teach in that course has to do with connection. So connection to yourself, know thyself, and also connections to others. So know thy others, you know. And so I like how I play with stuff like that. Essentially, we're interfacing between our inner world and our outer world, and by uh, first connecting to ourselves, I think we live in a society that is constantly pushing us to consume, look for instant gratifications. We're so distracted in this day and age with all the social medias and our texting and Facebooking that we're losing connection, like real world connection with each other, but we're also losing connections to ourselves because we're getting so distracted by so much information. And if you don't connect with yourself and ground yourself and realize like what you are, you're not just a bag of meat and bones. You know, you're something that's incredibly unique and special. And by tuning into that on a daily basis, even multiple times a day, you're going to be operating from a sense of power and awareness. Eventually, you start to develop the skill of tapping into flow and becoming aware of more information and being able to use your own filters in a positive way to know exactly what you need to do when and how long, and exactly the people you need to meet and where to go and where to flow. And so by tuning into yourself, you're going to have access to a whole nother dimension that you probably had noticed for a long time, maybe since you were a child. And by recognizing this and connecting to your source within, who knows, I mean, that's what's funny about life, and it's one big trip. We don't know the answers. We're dust floating in this galaxy of multiple billions of galaxies, and everybody has their ways of explaining, you know. But all I do know is that as we connect to ourselves, we feel connected to everything else. And so part of what they talk about in the flow experience is this sense of unity, unity consciousness, where you feel one with everything and everyone feels one with you, and there is no sense of resistance or interference or static or noise between each other. So between each other and between nature and between your within yourself. So that's one of the strategies you'll learn in this course that I'll be teaching. And I'm releasing the webinar next Wednesday. I believe it's March. What day is that? Next Wednesday, whatever. March.
March 4th.
March 4th, okay, at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The course is $2.22. I'm very creative, and said, why not? You know, when you're in a flow state, sometimes you see time being really interesting in synchronistic numbers, whether it's 111 or 222, 1111. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's so many cool combinations that you notice when you start to access another dimension. So yeah, I wanted to make that course affordable for everybody. I think that you know, one, the elements are available to all of us. So that's a hint that essentially you're going to be learning or relearning things that you probably already know, but just need a reminder, or you may have forgotten. And I want this course to be accessible for everybody on the planet, because you know, I think it's a shame that we're all still trying to survive even in the Western world. And in my world travels to over 22 countries, I think it's unfortunate that so many people don't have access to the basics of the elements, and they're trying to survive when given the opportunities and the resources to no longer have to strive for survival. That's when creativity starts to flourish, and by having more creativity, we're going to have a really bright future. I'm very optimistic about it, but we each have to play our part. So that's the part I'm playing, and you know, I welcome everybody on this call to come join me on my webinar, and invite everybody you know that you think would benefit, and it's going to be a blast. And I promise you, there'll be no psychedelics or jumping out of windows, okay?
Oh man. I really thought that's what it was going to be about. Oh my god. Oh no, seriously, man. So it's a 3-week course, right? It's one, two. I know you have 3
Yeah, as
webinars.
far as I know, I don't know how. I mean, I definitely know it's probably going to take 2. If I finish in 2, we'll definitely have like Q&A session for the 3rd week, and it might take longer. So I'm kind of just learning as I go. So I'm not tech savvy, but that's part of what I want you guys to take away at the end of this call, is that you can learn anything. You know, it's possible to pick up new skills. I'm setting my goal, and actually announcing it here, that I'm going to learn French. I'm going to play the guitar, and I'm going to pick up uh, new skills in math. So pick up anything. I'm learning about webinars now, being online. So I encourage everybody to uh, play the piano if you always wanted to play the piano. I'm thinking about doing acting classes and improv class, maybe comedy, definitely public speaking. So don't wait, pick something and just do it. Even right after this call, go do something that you haven't done before.
Mm, awesome. So for those of you who are interested in joining Tony's course, the link is you might need to write this down or type it into a notepad. But right now the link is bit.ly, so that's bit.ly/17ZGH8A. It's like reading a phone number. So
Yeah.
one more time. It's bit.ly slash 17ZGH8A. And
Uh, does it matter about the caps short?
actually, yeah, it might, but I guess I will post this for those of you who came to hear from the Facebook event. I'll post this link in the Facebook event, and I'll also post it underneath this video, and that should update within like the next 30 minutes.
Yeah,
So
on YouTube, right?
on YouTube, yeah, yeah. So you can either find this at the Facebook event page, or you can find it at the bottom of the YouTube link in about 30 minutes. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Tony, for showing up today and sharing your story. It's really been a pleasure to have you share your story with this audience and really inspire people to be thinking more creatively and tapping into their their inner badass, their inner selves that quite often, like you said, sometimes we're in that Woody Allen mode, but as soon as we kind of leave that and we find different ways to leave that, preferably natural ways, which are the things that you're teaching in your course, it really gives us so much more joy. We just experience so much more and get so much more juice out of life. So, and I really appreciate the fact that you're making your course so affordable. I know that a lot of like gurus out there, they sell like hundreds or thousands of dollars for their courses. So I appreciate, the fact that you see the importance of as many people as possible understanding this knowledge and really the benefit that will create in our world.
Let's
So,
make it clear that I am definitely not a guru, okay? I know
you're
you didn't
not a
say that,
guru.
but definitely I'm publicly saying that I'm not a guru for
Yeah,
I'm human. I'm not infallible, and but I do my best, and I'm sure we're all doing our best as well. So
absolutely. Absolutely. So once again, the link is bit.ly/17ZGH8A. That's for Tony's course, Flow Elementals, the energy triggers of superstates, 10 simple strategies for bending time, learning fast, and feeling superhuman. And if you'd like to connect with Tony, I'm guessing you can connect with him through Facebook, right? Would that be the best place for people to connect with you?
yeah, Facebook's the best.
All right, cool. That's Tony.
They can go on my website as well at TONEFLOREAL.com. Pronounce Tony like tone, or spell Tony like tone, and it's TonyFlowreal.com.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, cool. Well, thank you, Tony, and thank you, everyone who tuned in today for another edition of Inspiring Stories of Transformation. If you liked this video, if you thought it was awesome and inspiring and you want to share it with your friends, spread the love, please do. And please let me know if you have any feedback or questions for future Inspiring Stories of Transformation, and be sure to subscribe to this channel so you get all the future updates for future episodes to come, because we're going to be having at least one of these episodes every single week. So I'm excited to keep bringing you guys some quality content, quality interviews, amazing entrepreneurs. And yeah, until next time, guys, peace out and enjoy your day.
See you, everybody.